Before getting into next one, like in deletion, updation, and insertion, let's try to understand more about this program here. So as I said that when you try to get the value of any column, you can give the column position that starts from one, and you can also give the name of the column. So suppose here you want to give the name of the column as name. Okay, then also it will be output will be same, right? Because there is a column with name in the table for the employee. If you change the name like this, it may throw the exception. So what it will say, it will say that column name one is not found. Okay. Second thing, these resources which we are closing here, it is always advisable to close them. So if something goes wrong while executing the query, then the flow will not reach here. So what generally we do, we will put this execution of this query into try block, or you can put whole block as in try block, and then you can put, if you're not catching anything, you can put finally to close them. And finally we will close all those things. Okay, so let's put result set variable outside of this try, so that in finally we can understand it. Okay, and because there could be possibility that it may be null, so we say that if rs is not null, then rs dot close, just to avoid null pointer exception. Okay, so once you've done that, you will get the similar result. Okay, right, now let's move to create one. Let's try to um, isolate this code for the reusability. Okay, so let's move this class, let's create one method which will say find employee. Okay, find employee is the method, and I will pass the okay, this is basically list employee. What we have done, this is list employees. Okay, it is public void. Let's move this logic here. Okay, there are only one exception which is expected from all kind of SQL queries, that is SQL exception. We will throw it, then we will call here list employee. Let's create, okay, let's mark it as a static. Okay, so that I have written one method we can call whenever it is needed, instead of writing that whole logic inside the main method. Okay, now let's write one method called insert employee. Static public static void add employee. Here I'm going to use the employee object. We have some employee object, I believe. Somewhere we have created employee object which has ID, name, uh, date of birth it doesn't have. Let's see how many it has: ID, name, date of birth. That's all. So let's create few more properties. Let's create, let's make it. I am, I want to create ID because, sorry, date of birth and salary. Okay. And department ID. So I will say private string, sorry, private date, date of birth. Okay. Then we will say private salary, private int salary, and then we will say private int department. Okay. Let's create getter and setter for that. Okay. So I have few more properties, but what properties we are dealing with here, only those property corresponding we have column in the employee table in the database. We have ID, name, date of birth, salary, and department. Okay. So what, so before creating this employee, I should have that employee object ready. Okay. Then again, like similar way, we will get the connection and create the statement. Okay, I'm just reusing the code. Okay, let's throw the exception, throw the exception. Now my query is insert query, right? So I would say insert into employee. We want to insert ID. You can get, you can, if you don't want to insert all the columns while inserting the one record into the employee, what you need to do, you need to specify the columns what you want to populate the data, and those columns you have to at least populate mandatory fields. Okay. Otherwise, if you want to do the full population, you can just use the values. Okay. So I'm here, I'm giving the name, sorry, giving the name of columns: ID, name, date of birth, salary, and let's see the ID, name, date of birth, salary, TPT ID. Okay. And then I say values. First value is ID, that is int. that I will say emp dot get id. Okay, then we will say emp dot comma. Okay, then that is name we will say emp dot get name, comma, then date of birth. So for emp name I have to put into code. So I will put name in the code. Then we will have date of birth. Date of birth I will say, let's first see emp dot get date of birth. Then we have another comma. Then we say emp dot get salary. Okay. Then we have emp dot get department ID. Right. So this is my query to insert the record. Let's print the query. Okay. Let's call this method add employee. Employee here I'm passing new employee. I will pass ID as one, name as say Naveen. Then we have date of birth. Date of birth is a date, right? So I think there is no constructor for this. We have to create the constructor. So in this constructor, I will add date, date of birth, and int salary and int department ID. So let's say that this dot date of birth is equal to date of birth. This dot salary is equal to salary, and this dot dpid equal to dpid. Okay. When I say this is for current object, and other similar variable is from the parameter. Now let's create the date. So date, how to do that? For date, we have to create one format which database accepts. Okay, so for creating the format, we have to use simple date format in Java. Simple date format is utility which will which will convert your date from string to date or date to string. It will do that format or parsing as required. Okay. Here you have to give the pattern like format. I want to give the format like YYYY hyphen DD hyphen MM. Okay. So here I want to say STF dot parse. I have to give the date as 2004. Sorry, 2000. Sorry, 1980, 1990 hyphen 04 hyphen 07. Okay. Then we have another value, that is salary. Salary say 20K and department is 2. Okay. So if you're parsing the date, you can get some uh, parse exception. Okay. So let's throw the parse exception here. What is problem? So in employee int string date int is undefined. Okay. ID is there, name is there, date of birth is there, salary is there, department ID is there. Okay, so nothing was wrong. I just needed to save the employee object. So let's try to print the query. Okay, so here you can see that the values are available here in terms of insert queries. So insert into employee ID, name, date of birth. Okay, so here it seems that the date is not correct. The date which is coming, that is January 4. Okay, so I think there is something wrong with format. Let's try this one. Oh, this is also not correct. I believe this should be capital M. Let's see. Right. Now it is Wednesday, July 4, right? So now my date is correct. So let's try to insert this employee. So to insert it, what I need to do, I need to create the statement. The statement I have already created. Now I need to execute the query. So to execute the query, I say stmt dot execute update. Execute update will be used when you're trying to do the the insertion, updation, and deletion. So it will tell you that the return type is int. It will tell that how many row has been affected by that operation. Okay, just give me a few seconds. Okay, so let's execute this statement, that is query. So stmt dot execute update and passing this query. Okay, and let's print the int affected rows equal to stmt dot execute query, and let's print how many rows has been affected. That is okay. Now after doing this, I need to close the statement and connection. So let's put this one in try block. Okay, and put finally and say first you need to close the statement, then connection stmd dot close, then con dot close. Let's put this println inside this try block. Okay, so now our add employee method is ready. Let's try to run it. There is some exception. Let's see what is that. It says that there is some problem with date. Let's try to run this one as a query and let's see what is the problem. Okay, there seems that problem with date of birth. So let's try with giving like a string. Let's change this one. Okay, let's not do that this way. Let's do one thing like stf dot format. Let's pass this one in the string form, and in the add employee we will say okay. So while adding the employee we will try to do something there. So here while passing this get dob we will say that let's create the same format over there. Let's say that stf dot format this date. Okay, now let's try to run it. Now our queries is like this. This is the string, right? So we have to put as a string. Then finally we need to close this parenthesis. Now if I run it, I should be seeing the query properly. Okay. So if I see here, my query is says fine. Now it is trying to give a duplicate entry error for primary key, that is ID, because that ID is already available. So let's give it 3 because 3 is not available. If we proceed, we will get that this record has been inserted and the number of impacted rows are 1. Okay. So if I go and see in database, say select star from employee, I should be seeing three record here, right? This is the one which I have created. So all the kind of validation will happen here. Suppose I am giving here department ID 12, which is a foreign key constant, right? Because of foreign key constant, it will not allow me to insert because there is no department in the department table with department ID 12. So I should be able to see one exception with the foreign key. Integrity constant violation exception. Okay, so this is how you can do the insertion. You can do the insertion. You can to avoid this problem that employee is existing or not, right? You are giving the ID. There could be that ID. There could be possibility that that employee is already existing with that ID. So what you can do, you can first find it and then do that. So here, let's write one method called find. If you want to search any employee, so I'm just doing very much copy paste of the code and say this method as search employee. Search employee I want to give as with the ID. Okay, I want to search the employee with ID. So I will say int ID and almost similar things. First, I will get the connection. Then I will create the statement. Then I will write the query, some query. So let's write the query here. Query will be like select query. So let's copy the query from here and result set and some finally and all those things. Let's copy all those things here. Okay. So what is going to happen? I want to select the query, select the employee based on the ID. So I will say select star from employee where ID is equal to ID is equal to ID. Okay, then it will give me result set and I know that there will be only one record for that given ID maximum because ID is primary key. So I don't need to do basically while loop. We can simply say if rs dot next, then just print that ID and all those things details, right? So before insertion, I will say find search employee. I will get, let's try to get the boolean. Okay, so here what I will do, if rs dot next return true. Okay, otherwise return false. Fine. So this will just give me that that employee is there not. So before add employee, I will say that whatever ID I am giving here, we can say that if search employee what is the method I created? Yeah, search. This is not static, so let's make it static. So I will say if search employee and passing say 3, then only add the employee. Okay, now let's run it. Something is wrong. Oh, I'm searching, then why it is giving still giving the primary key problem. It should not execute add employee. So what is wrong here? Okay. So I'm sorry. My condition is wrong. So if I have that employee, then I should not insert. So there is no console because nothing will happen because the employee with what I want to add, that is with employee ID 3, that is already available. If I go for 4 and say 4 here, then I should be able to add the employee. Now if I see here in the database, I should be seeing four employees. Okay. So two employees can have the same salary, same date of birth, same name, same department ID. It's possible, but ID will be never possible to be the same. So let's try to see another example of how to update the employee. Let's create one method called like add. I'll create one modify. So this will be modify employee. Modify employee. I want what I want. Uh, I will give one ID. Okay. For that ID, I will get the employee from database. Okay. And then I will update its name. Okay. So first parameter is to find the employee. Second parameter is to update the employee. So to find the employee, what I will do, I will make one uh, method, say that get employee, public static employee I want to get. How will I get it? Okay, no need. So let's do it at one query. So here in the modify employee, I will use the first parameter ID to get the employee, and once I get the employee, I will update the employee. And what I will update the name. So everything is almost same. Let's remove it. Date, that is not useful now. Let's create the statement. Let's create the statement, and then we will go with query. So query, what will happen, I need to say update employee, and we are going to update its name. So say name is equal to whatever name I want to update, that is in single code. In single quote I have given, I need to give the name. So I say name, then single quote, and then I will say where, which employee I want to update. I want to update that employee which has the name with the specified name. So it's where sorry, with the name with the specified ID. So where ID equal to given ID. Okay, so this will be my query. As simple. Update implies set name where ID equal to ID, given ID. So here I can print the query. Then I have to use execute update, right? Because I'm doing some update. Let's try to run this. So in this main method, I will say modify employee ID of 3, and let's put Naveen modified. Okay, I think 3 is, let's see the record. 3 is having Naveen. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this update has been done. This is the query update modify set name is equal to Naveen modified where ID is equal to 3. Let's see the database it is done or not. Yes, it is modified, right? So this is the way you can update the record. You can update. Let's try to update all the. Let's update ID number 4. So here I say Naveen 1 modified. So if I run it, I should be seeing the update here. Naveen 1 modified is modified for employee ID 4. Okay, so let's try to give some ID which is not there. Let's give 6, 5. So if I do that, so there is no any update. So number of rows affected is 0. Okay, so this is how we can do that updation. Let's try to do some delete. Suppose you want to delete any record from the database, from any table. What you can do here, you can basically write one method. Let's do some again some copy paste. Okay, so which method I should copy? So let's copy the add one only. So okay, let's create another method called delete modify, or you can say just remove modify. Sorry, remove. No, it is remove employee. Okay, so in that I am giving the ID to remove. Okay, so few things are same in the query, only it is different. What it will say, delete from employee where ID is equal to given ID. So this is my query. Okay, now let's run it. This date is not required here. Only I'm creating the connection statement in query, which is very much common steps, and I'm using execute update because I want to delete the record. So let's run it. Let's remove employee of ID 5. So we know that 5 ID is not there. Let's see what will happen. Right here says that query is delete from employee where ID is equal to 5, and there is no row that has been deleted because there is this row is not available. So let's give 4. So if I give 4, the my one employee with ID 4 has been deleted. Let's see the database. Yeah, now we have only 1, 2, 3. ID 4 has been removed. Okay, so this is pretty much CRUD operation in any table. We have done the creation, we have done the update, we have done the remove. Okay, and we have done the retrieval also, and we have done the search, right? Listing also we have done. So these are the very much basic operation that we can perform on any table, right? These operations are called DML because we are modifying the data. Let's try to see something DDS as well. So let's create one method called um, create table. So it's a public static wired create entity, or you can say create table. In this method, what I will do, I have to give the whole structure of your table. So it is almost everything is same. Okay, I need to get the connection. I need to create the statement. Only query will be different. So query will be something like, again, create table. Let's create table called student, and inside that I have its ID, that is integer, its name, it is varchar 255. Let's have only this much. Okay, now we need to throw the exception also. Okay, so once I have this query, we have to use, generally we can use the execute query. So when you are trying to do DDL operation, generally we use the execute query, execute method. There is another method called execute query that is used to retrieve the data. So let's use execute method, and its return type is boolean. Okay, so you can print the result. So this is about DDL language. Okay, let's run it. Let's create. Let's call this method create entity. Okay, or better we can give the name as, because we are creating the student, create student entity. Okay, let's run it. There is some exception. What is the problem? There is some issue. Yeah, there is syntax issue. This is varchar, and let's keep this one as a primary key. Okay. Again, some problem. What is that? The query is create table student ID integer primary key where common name varchar. Oh, that parenthesis is not closed properly. Okay. Yeah. So create table has been done. Okay. So the result is coming out false. I don't know why, I need to see, but let's see that create table has been created. So we have to say show tables in the query. Yes, student has been created. Let's describe it. So yes, my student has been created. Entity has been created. Another thing is, we can create as, we have drop the student. Okay. So to drop the student, we have here drop table student. Everything is same. We just need to drop a student, call this. Let's see it is dropped or not. Yes, it's dropped. There is no student entity inside the database. Okay, so we have seen a lot of examples here. That's about DDL and DML. I want to show about JDBC. Okay, here you can do a lot of code optimization. Like most of the method are look same, so you can say like they mostly differ from each other in terms of type of operation or in terms of queries. So you can parameterize operation or queries, and you can make one generic method over here, right? Suppose you can say that here I want to do some manage in a student entity and passing the query here. Okay, you can manage the institute, student entity by creating the student or dropping the student. Okay, so here query you can pass, and you can use this query internally. Okay, so what I need to say here to do manage a student entity, and the query for creation you can give like this. This query you can form outside. Okay, and for dropping you will have another query. Once you create, you can call again this to drop it. Okay, so drop a student is not needed now. Okay, everything I can do through manage entity. So let's not drop. Let's create some table. Yeah, a student again. So let's run it. Let's see the database. So tables student has been created, and now I will run this query and call this again. So in this way I will drop the my student. So here you can do now this student table is not present over there. So you can optimize your code, right? It is always advised to have the best code what you can write at a time. Okay, so this is all about JDBC. Going forward, I will show you a small application that is about employee management. So which will have a web app, okay, where you will have some HTML page, and you will do the CRUD operation from UI. Like you have some application web page, from there you can create the employee, delete the employee, list the employee, and find the employee. Okay, that we will uh, go through you that I will make you go through that project end to end and explain you what is happening here. It is a small application that will help you to understand from a web application point of view how your Java is placed.